Hello, my name is Mathias and welcome to the FPL Scope. Today we're going to talk about a very controversial subject in FPL this season, and that is having Mohamed Salah in your squad. And this didn't used to be a controversial subject at all, because Mo Salah was pretty much a guarantee in your Gameweek 1 squad the past 5 or 6 seasons, ever since he joined Liverpool really. Because he always performs consistently. He has gotten more than 231 points in each and every season he has played for Liverpool in the Premier League. So he is usually a fantastic pick, but there's one big reason people are not picking him this season, and that is a big, tall, blonde Norwegian guy. Not me, because I'm trying to get you to buy Salah, but a fellow Norwegian guy named Haaland, who plays for Man City and is costs 14.0 in Fantasy Premier League, and is going to be most people's permanent captain this season, it seems like. And without captaincy for Salah most game weeks, he doesn't have that much value as he has had before, even though he's priced the same. So that's why people are kind of put off by Salah, but I think there are plenty of good reasons to have Salah from Gameweek 1, and I'm going to try to explain that to you in this video. So first and foremost, he is the greatest of all time in FPL. He always scores a lot of points. He's always super reliable, still is really reliable, plays for a really good team. He is a fantastic player, one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion. He's going to be up there amongst the greatest when he decides to retire. But yeah, he is the FPL GOAT by far. In my view, he's so consistent, so good. And in Game Week 2, he has a really favorable fixture against Bournemouth at home, and that is the same game week where Haaland plays Newcastle at home. So I think that is a great game week for you to have Salah as captain. And yeah, sure, you're not going to captain him much more than that, but that's why you can sell him in Game Week 3 and have a lot of flexibility to do anything you want from Game Week 3 onwards. And that is looking more and more viable now, with several players that are unsure for Game Week 1 but could be really good for Game Week 3 and Game Week 4, and I'm going to talk about them towards the end of this video. But yeah, there are a lot of positives about Salah, but let's just first take a look at what type of squad you can have with and without Salah. And let's start with the no Salah squad, where you don't have Salah. So this is a pretty template squad. You have Onana, Chilwell, Gabriel, Estupinian, super template defense. I mean, John Stones is also kind of template. He's not in this team, but he's also someone you can consider. But in the midfield, you have Bruno Fernandes and Rashford, really popular players. Saka in pretty much every single squad. Martinelli is getting steam as a popular pick now that Gabriel Jesus is injured. And then you have a 6.5 midfielder in Mbeumo. Some people prefer Eze, some people prefer Mitoma. I prefer Mbeumo, and yeah, but most people have a 6.5 midfielder at least in their squad as well. Haaland, he is a given. He's in every single squad. He's the captain in Game Week 1 for pretty much every single team. But then his striking partner is kind of up in the air. So Watkins is a pretty popular pick nowadays. But you also have the likes of Julian Alvarez, who obviously could play in Game Week 1 against Burnley. And we're probably going to get team leaks before that game as well. So if it's leaked that Alvarez starts that game, I imagine a lot of players choosing him as the second striker as well, because you really need to cover more than one City attacker, I feel like, as well. But not that many good options at the moment, because Foden, his playing time is unsure. And Alvarez as well. Don't really know about his playing time. Kevin De Bruyne has been injured, and we'll get to Kevin De Bruyne eventually in this video as well. But yeah, Darwin Núñez is another one, but he's also one of those Liverpool players you don't really know who's going to play. Darwin, Kakpo, Jota, Luis Diaz, Szoboszlai, they have so many attacking talents, but we know Salah is going to play, so that's why I feel like you should have Salah in your squad and have a Mo Salah squad. So this is how you get that. You sell Fernandes, sadly. Fernandes is a fantastic pick, but I think Salah is even greater. And this costs you 4 million, so you have to get that money back somehow. And the way I've done it is I've downgraded Martinelli to Diaby and gone from Watkins to João Pedro. But I like to look at it more as Watkins to Diaby, because they play for the same team. They have pretty much the same value. They have like the same fixtures and all that stuff. I think Diaby is less secure of an option, obviously, because he's new to the league and stuff, but he also has more potential. So, you know, Mo Salah in his first season got 303 points, so who knows? I don't think Diaby is going to get anywhere close to that, but he can definitely play better and have more points in the end than Watkins. And he is 1.5 less than Watkins, so sure, Watkins is more of a secure pick, but I don't think Diaby is that much of a downgrade at all, really. But then Martinelli to João Pedro, that is a pretty big downgrade, because Martinelli is pretty nailed for one of the best teams, if not the best team in the Premier League. After all, they just beat Man City for the Community Shield. But yeah, Martinelli is going to play a lot of matches for Arsenal, going to score a lot of goals. So that is a bit of a downgrade. But at the same time, I'm a pretty big fan of João Pedro. I even mentioned his name previously in this week before the final penalty goal he had for Brighton as a potential good option, because I think he's, next to Mitoma, I think he is the most nailed player for Brighton. He can play as number 10, he can play as a striker even, which will help him get even more points. Or he can play on the wing as well. So I think he's going to play a lot, and I think he's going to improve a lot because he plays for a much better team now than he did with Watford. So I don't think it's that much of a downgrade with Martinelli to Pedro and Watkins to Diaby. And you get a pretty good upgrade, I think, from Fernandes to Salah, especially in Game Week 2 when you can captain him. And that's what we're going to look at right now. So firstly, before we think about Salah, we have to think about what can Haaland do. Because obviously if Haaland scores a hat-trick in Game Week 2, Salah can basically only hope to match it. So we need Haaland to kind of struggle in Game Week 2 if we're going with Salah as captain in Game Week 2, because otherwise it's going to be really difficult. So, but speaking of difficult, Haaland against Newcastle is no easy task. So he played Newcastle twice last season. He got 6 points in the first match, to be honest. He scored a goal, didn't get any bonus, so only 6 points, which is decent for a captain. And then in the second game, he blanked, got 2 points. So that's pretty encouraging. And there are some other encouraging things about Newcastle and their defense. So they had 14 clean sheets last season, which is joint second in the league. They conceded the least amount of goals, joint with City, with 33 goals conceded, which is really low. 40.09 expected goals conceded, which is second in the league, and they also had the second least shots on target conceded with 127. What's more interesting is the conceded goals distribution. So in 70 matches, they only conceded 1 goal, and in 40 matches, they conceded no goals. They had a clean sheet. So that means in 31 out of the 38 matches, they only conceded 1 goal or fewer, which is exactly what you want if you want to bank against Haaland as captain in Game Week 2. Because if Man City win 1-0, for example, the best Haaland can get is 9 points. 4 points from scoring a goal, 3 points from bonus at the most, and 2 points for playing 60 plus minutes. So that's what you're looking for. So scoring 3 goals or 4 goals against Newcastle is pretty damn tough. I mean, City did it in one game last season. They scored 3-3 in Game Week, was it Game Week 4, Game Week 3? But other than that, Newcastle only conceded 3 goals one other time, and that was against Aston Villa. And in those games, we had a couple double-digit hauls, but that's pretty much it, as we're going to see in this next graph. So the amount of double-digit hauls against Newcastle among midfielders and forwards who can't get clean sheet points, apart from the 1 clean sheet points for midfielders, you have only 8 players, and only four out of those players had 2 goal returns or more. So the only player with more than 2 goal returns is Watkins, who had 2 goals and 1 assist in that 3-0 win in Game Week 31. Ramsey, in the same game, had 1 goal and 1 assist and got 13 points. You have Bernardo in Game Week 3. He got 1 goal and 1 assist. And the final guy who got 2 goal returns is the main man himself, Mohamed Salah, who's that good that can get 2 assists against Newcastle. But that was pretty lucky, to be honest. He got an assist right at the end where Liverpool just edged the win that was at the beginning of the season. That's also something you should note from this graph is the game weeks, because most of these game weeks are either at the start when Newcastle didn't know that they were that good, they didn't have the same respect in the league, and they didn't have the same self-belief that they had further on in the season. But you can also see a couple of matches towards the end of the season where they struggled a bit, and I think they were a bit gassed towards the end. They didn't have the biggest squad, and they struggled a bit with fitness towards the end. But in the middle part of the season, they barely conceded at all, and I think that is the type of Newcastle team we'll see from the start of this season, because they've obviously strengthened already with Livramento and Tonali in midfield as well, who's going to help them a lot. So it's going to be really difficult to score double-digit hauls, maybe just as difficult or potentially even more difficult than it was last season, and very few people managed to do it last season, including Haaland. So yeah, I think Newcastle can do a really good job against Haaland and keep him at bay. So that leads us to Mohamed Salah. He could potentially outscore Haaland in Game Week 2 as the captain, and he plays against a pretty good team to get good goal returns against, because that team is Bournemouth and their leaky defense. So last season they had 8 clean sheets, which is joint 16th in the league. They conceded 71 goals, which was 18th in the league. Expected goals conceded was 65.04, 15th in the league, and shots on target conceded was actually the most in the league. So they're 20th in that regard, with 204 shots on target conceded. And also, if you look at the conceded goals distribution, they had 11 games where they conceded 3 goals or more. 6 of those matches, they conceded 3 goals, and in 5 of those matches, they conceded 4+ goals. One of them was the infamous 9-0 loss against Liverpool, where Salah blanked, but that was an anomaly. That's probably not going to happen again. But there were a lot of good point scorers for Liverpool in that game, and there were a lot of good double-digit goal scorers against Bournemouth in general last season. So let's take a look at that table for Bournemouth. So the biggest score of all against Bournemouth last season was Bobby Firmino in Gameweek 4, 22 points from 2 goals and 3 assists. So imagine if Salah gets a similar return to that. It could potentially happen, because you saw it happen with the Liverpool player last season against Bournemouth. So that would mean 22 points, 44 points as captain, compared to Haaland, who, let's say he gets 9 points, he gets 1 goal and gets 3 bonus. That's 18 points as a captain for Haaland and 44 points as a captain for Salah. That's a pretty big difference already. And I think the opposite, Haaland scoring 20+ points and Salah scoring only 9 or something, I think that's not as likely at all, because Newcastle are so much better than Bournemouth. So a lot of players scored 2 or more goal returns against Bournemouth. 12, in fact, in total, had 2 or more goal returns. You can see them all on the list here. Ødegaard, Eze, De Bruyne, a lot of names. Luis Diaz in that same game for Liverpool. So many players had a lot of goals and assists against Bournemouth. And you have even more players who got only 1 goal, and they still got a double-digit haul. So you can see them on the list here as well. 9 players. So that means 21 players in total in midfield and among the forwards got 10 or more points against Bournemouth. And that's what we're looking for with Salah as captain, and what we can potentially get with Salah as captain. Should also be noted, though, Bournemouth might not be the same team this season. They have in fact sold Jefferson Lerma, who was their defensive midfielder, who has been really good, probably their best player the last few seasons, and they still haven't replaced him. So I think defensively they can struggle still. But one big reason why they probably can turn it around is their new manager, because they brought in Andoni Iraola in for Gary O'Neill. I know a lot of people had issues with that decision, but I think Iraola is a fantastic manager, and I think Gary O'Neill was kind of overrated last season, to be honest. But looking at Andoni Iraola with Rayo Vallecano, he did an amazing job. He got them promoted in his first season from the Segunda División to the Primera División, and in La Liga he had 2 pretty good seasons in a row where he finished comfortably mid-table and had decent defensive numbers, as we see here. 9 clean sheets is not that good. It was still joined 13th in the league, because teams in La Liga concede or score a little bit less goals. So yeah, but they conceded 53 goals in total. Rayo Vallecano, that was joined 12th in the league, 49.9 expected goals conceded, which is 11th in the league, and 144 shots on target, which is 7th in the league. And if you look at the conceded goals distribution, it is more similar to Newcastle than it is to Bournemouth, because only in 1 match did they concede 4 or more goals, and that was I can't remember exactly which team it was. It was either Real Sociedad or something, or Celta Vigo or something. Some like decent team, not like the best team, but they won 4-0, I think. So they scored only 4 goals. Apart from that, not that many teams scored that many goals against Rayo Vallecano. And what's more impressive is what we're going to see in the next slide, and that is against the big teams, the top 3 teams in La Liga. Rayo Vallecano did really good. So they played 12 matches against Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Atletico Madrid the past 2 seasons. And in those 12 matches, they won 4 of them. So every third match, they beat one of the big 3 sides. They lost 6 matches, so obviously they lost more than they won, and they had 2 draws. But what's more impressive is that they only conceded 14 goals in these 12 games, which is not that much at all. And as you can see from the scores, they never conceded more than 2 goals against the big teams. So yeah, Iraola might have that effect for Bournemouth, but like I said, he started in Segunda División, which meant that he could implement his tactics and get his preferred players in while they were playing against the likes of Ponferradina and Torrevieja and stuff. So that probably helped him. Now he's moving to a new country, new culture, new language. He might not be as good of a fit in the Premier League as he was in La Liga, so it remains to be seen. So, but maybe there are some truth to these numbers, and he is going to be a big 6 killer in the Premier League as well. But to counteract that, we're going to look at some Liverpool stats from Game Week 30 onwards last season when they changed their tactics and really opened up a lot of things for them offensively. So they played Trent Alexander-Arnold as an inverted fullback, had Robertson play as sort of like a centre-back, de facto centre-back, and that really helped Liverpool. And they scored a lot of goals, and Salah got a lot of points towards the end of last season. Salah only blanked 1 out of the last 10 matches last season, so he's going to score a lot of goals. You know that, or get a lot of points at least. Score some goals, get some assists. We know that from Salah, he's Mr. Consistent. But yeah, Liverpool scored 27 goals in these 10 games. That's 2.7 goals per game, which is amazing. So having Salah as your captain in Game Week 2 is a pretty big advantage, and I think there's an potentially even better thing that happens in Game Week 3 if you have Salah from the start of the season, and I'll show you that now. So this would be my Game Week 3 squad if I start the season with Salah, because there's a pretty common tactic in FPL terms where you don't make a transfer in Game Week 2, you wait until Game Week 3 and you get 2 transfers instead. Because you'll have 2 transfers, you have so much more flexibility in terms of what you need to change with your team. And you also have 2 game weeks worth of data, 2 game weeks worth of seeing teams. You get to know which players are performing well this season. You get to know which teams are performing well this season as well. And you also get some more advantages in terms of players returning from injury in Game Week 3 that you can't get in Game Week 1, or that you'd have to stash on the bench in Game Week 1. And why would you stash them on the bench when you can just stash the money in Salah and get them in for Game Week 3, which I'm going to show you. So yeah, with Salah, you probably want to sell him in Game Week 3 if you start with him this season. And I know you shouldn't book transfers and stuff, but the best way to book a transfer is to book the transfer where you can get any player you want in any position. And that's what happens with Salah. So obviously he has tough fixtures, Newcastle away. I don't have to talk about why Newcastle away is a tough fixture again. Aston Villa at home. Aston Villa are an improving team. He has 2 decent fixtures in Game Week 5 and 6. So sure, if Salah is looking like the beast that he always is, maybe it looks like he's on for another 300-point season again, then yeah, maybe you keep him and you don't have that much money in the bank, but that's a luxury problem to have. But yeah, even with these decent fixtures in Game Week 5 and 6, they have 2 away games, 2 pretty tough away games against Spurs and Brighton in Game Week 7 and 8. So I think selling Salah in Game Week 3 is probably what I'm going to do when I start the season with Salah. But selling Salah in Game Week 3 means that you have 12.5 in the bank on your first transfer. So you can get in someone like Kevin De Bruyne, who's going to be really difficult for everyone else to get in, because they'd have to like downgrade someone huge in attack to get De Bruyne in midfield or something, or downgrade like a pretty big midfielder to get De Bruyne in midfield. So usually the no Salah squads have the wealth more spread around to different players, and it's really difficult to do like 4 or 5 transfers to get De Bruyne in. But De Bruyne might be a fantastic option at this point, because if you look at City's fixtures, like we said with Haaland, he has easy fixtures, and that goes the same for De Bruyne, who is going to be back fully fit at this point in Game Week 3. He obviously got some minutes in Community Shield, but he's not going to start in Game Week 1 most likely, and you don't want to start the season with a player costing 10.5 when he doesn't even play in Game Week 1. But for Game Week 3, it's a fantastic option, and it's way more difficult to get him if you don't have Salah from the start. But maybe De Bruyne isn't the best. Maybe there are some other players that have looked really good. Maybe Spurs under Postecoglou look amazing, and then you buy Son and you have 3.5 in the bank still. So even if you buy Son, you can upgrade Mubama to any striker you want, really, because you have 8.0 in the bank, and the most expensive strikers are 8.0, whether that's Gabriel Jesus or Watkins or Wilson. But yeah, you can also get someone like Nkunku in. You still have the money for that. Even if it goes up in price, you still have the money for that. And you can play Nkunku. Maybe Diaby is looking difficult for him to play against Burnley. Maybe Mbeumo doesn't look as good. Sorry about the voice crack there. But anyways, you get Nkunku in Game Week 3, and Nkunku is not going to be in any squad at all pretty much, because he's injured in Game Week 1, but he might be back for Game Week 3 when they have Luton and they have fantastic fixtures. The much talked about fixture swing for Chelsea, which actually starts in Game Week 2, I think, because West Ham are not good this season, trust me, as a West Ham fan. But anyways, from Game Week 3 especially, Chelsea have such a fantastic fixture swing. So even if you get someone like Son, who's expensive, you still can afford Nkunku in for Mubama and upgrade your squad there, and still have Udogie and Kabore as bench options, even with a full starting 11 as well. But yeah, don't even have to go with Son. You can maybe you go with Bruno Fernandes. Maybe Bruno Fernandes actually was a fantastic pick. And I think he is a fantastic pick, to be honest. But I think Salah is just a little bit better as a pick. And this is partly the reason why you can still get Fernandes in Game Week 3 if you want to. And you wouldn't have lost that many points. I think Salah is going to get more points than Bruno Fernandes in the first 2 game weeks. And then you get Bruno Fernandes back anyway in Game Week 3. But still, maybe the 6.5 midfielders are going crazy. Maybe someone like Eberechi Esse is someone you need to bring in because he has decent fixtures at this point as well. That leaves you with even more money in the bank. Even after Mubama to Nkunku, you still have 3 million in the bank. So for Game Week 4 then, you have 3 million in the bank in one transfer. You can still, maybe Chelsea look fantastic, maybe Nick Jackson. Because Game Week 4, at this point, the transfer window has shut, and we know if Vlahovic is joining or not. You can add Nick Jackson, and all of a sudden you have 3 prime Chelsea players and a really top performing 6.5 midfielder and 1.5 million in the bank at this point. So you have so much flexibility if you have Salah and sell him in Game Week 3. So many options. You can even potentially you can do this little move as well. Speaking of transfer window and things shutting down, you can even do Salah down to Anderson, and whoop, you have enough money for Harry Kane for his upcoming fixtures against Bournemouth, Burnley, and Sheffield United. Obviously, if Diaby is performing well, you don't really want to bench him against Burnley anyway, but that's the flexibility you have. If you have any like not performing players, maybe Joao Pedro loses his place, he can swap out for a midfielder if you don't want to go with Kane. So yeah, there are so many options in Game Week 3 and beyond as well, because like you saw with that previous example, you had 1.5 million in the bank. You can get Nkunku, Jackson, and a pretty good midfielder still. So yeah, there's so much flexibility in Game Week 3 when we have so much more data, so much more information, so much more knowledge about who are good players to have and who are bad players to have going forward in FPL. So Salah, just to summarize it at the end of this video, you have a really good captaincy option in Game Week 2, an even better captaincy option than Haaland in my eyes, as we've seen from the numbers. And then you can get pretty much any team you want from Game Week 3 onwards. Really, you can buy any single player you want. You can even keep Salah. Maybe Salah performs fantastically and you want to keep him as well. So endless possibilities if you start with Salah this season. So I hope you at least consider it. I hope this video has been informative for you. Maybe I've convinced you to get Salah and convinced you to not get Salah and convinced you to get Salah in again, because there are pluses and minuses with Salah. We obviously know this. I can return back to my original screen with Salah, the main man, the beautiful player that we know. Salah as well. Like, you got to back Salah. He's such a nice guy. He's such a fantastic player. You really owe it to Salah as well for all that he's done for you in FPL. He has been a fantastic servant for me, especially. Like, every time I have him, he performs, because obviously it's Salah, but I've never really regretted having Salah in my team, and I've often regretted not having Salah in my team when I've sold him at certain points, especially last season when I sold him in that game against Man United when he scored a lot of points and a lot of goals. Sorry, I'm just flabbergasted by the brilliance of Salah. So yeah, my advice is having Salah from Game Week 1, but maybe you feel differently. Tell me down below in the comments if you have a different opinion. But that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you have a good season. Even if you don't go with Salah Game Week 1, I'm probably going to have a better season than you if you don't do that. But still, consider Salah and consider subscribing to this channel as well if you want to have more videos like this. And they're going to improve as well, because there are so many things I want to make better about this channel. But that is going up eventually. But for now, thank you and goodbye.